I think there's a pretty intriguing one at corner
Yeah,
involving their
that's right
first
too.
round pick
Mm-hmm.
from 2 years ago. And look, this goes all the way back to the combine when Kelvin Shepard issued his first public challenge to Terrion Arnold. And he told us in no uncertain time in terms that I just need that kid to be quiet and go play. And look, when maybe the most vocal, most bombastic coordinator in the NFL is telling you you're talking too much, probably time to simmer down and just play some football. And we heard it yesterday from Campbell as well, saying that look, when he gets out there on the field at full health and training camp, he's got to go earn it. And we heard it from Deshae Townsend, who said, yeah, he's gonna get his job back when he gets out there, but he's got to get back out there first. And I think there's been a level of frustration over the first couple seasons with Terrion's inability to practice in full capacity on a consistent basis, even in training camp and then throughout the season. Obviously, injuries last year derailed what should have been, in my eyes, sort of his breakout season. But Campbell was also clear yesterday that the Lions are done handing out jobs to
Mm-hmm.
players, whether it be based on pedigree, based on prior performances, based on name. And in his own words, he said they're not going to let anyone hold them hostage this season. Like if
Such
you
a
aren't
great line.
showing enough, such a great line. If you're not going to show enough growth or development, and there's someone beneath you that is, like, we're not going to hesitate anymore to go to that guy because, as Campbell put it himself, like it's not fair to us, it's not fair to the players, it's not fair to the coaches, anybody on the roster. And that was clearly a shift in his approach to roster construction this year that was informed by their disappointing finish last year. And to be clear, he wasn't talking explicitly or exclusively about TA, but like he might as well have been. That's the player along with maybe Mahogany who most fits that description of like, yo, it's time to produce. And he said we need to see growth. We need to see development. At some point, you can't wait anymore. And this is a big year for TA. I like that the coaching staff from Shep to Townsend to Campbell is laying down the gauntlet for him and telling him that if you want to be the guy that you think you are and that we still think you can be, you have to show us. Otherwise,
Mm-hmm.
we got Ennis Rakestraw, who's playing a lot with the first team defense in spring practices because you're not entirely healthy. And we got Rock Yassin, who we believe in. We even have Khalil Dorsey, who's made a couple plays in camp here. And, we're not going to defer to you just because you were a first round pick 2 years ago. And, Campbell and TA had a long, occasionally animated conversation coming off the field yesterday before TA spoke with reporters, and TA declined to share what was said between the two of them, although it was mostly Dan talking to TA. And when TA came and spoke with us about obviously the off-field incident, but also just his mindset entering year three, one of the things he said in response to the off-field questions was sometimes it's best to remain silent. So, maybe there's one example of TA taking Shep's advice, also probably his lawyer's advice. But when that scrum ended, the point I want to make here is that I pulled TA aside because he's always willing to talk more. It's one of the things that we all appreciate about him most. And I just said, look, man, most of these first round corners that that have been drafted over the past couple of years have established themselves as stars in the NFL, Pro Bowls, all pro players. Whether it was Christian Gonzalez in 23. Quinyon Mitchell in 24, 2 picks before Terrion. Witherspoon in 23. Obviously, TA's podcast buddy and close friend Pat Surtain. And I asked him, given the way those guys have lived up to their pedigree, is there a sense that you want to show this year that you belong in that conversation? And he kind of deferred and said it's not about proving it, and went on to give a very TA answer. His response was, my whole focus year three is how can TA be a better player? Who is TA in competition with? TA is in competition with himself. Now, of course, TA is going to talk about himself in the third person, but the irony there is that, like, really you aren't, dude. Like, you're also in competition beginning next month with Ennis Rakestraw, with Rock Yassin, with even Khalil Dorsey if he makes enough plays. And, it's time for TA to win his job back and then this season prove that he can pick up where he left off before his injury last year, because it did feel like he was playing pretty good ball, especially in that Cincinnati game when he got hurt. He felt like he was playing his best ball yet, but that's now what it'll be 10 months ago when this season kicks off, and he's going to have to get back on that level quickly, or the Lions won't be afraid to potentially make a change.
Your lineups. And today, let's go through it. So as you can see over here, we got 2 for the Lions on the season. We're going over in the new offense with Drew Petzing. Passing touchdowns for Jared Goff, 27.5. He's had 30 plus multiple times with the Detroit Lions. We're running this thing back. Give me more with Isaac Teslam and Ross St. Brown. You got Jameson Williams, a healthy Sam Laporta in this offense. I'll take it. Easy schedule. Jahmyr Gibbs, I'm going to go more. 1,199.5. So we're going 1,200 for Jahmyr Gibbs on the ground. And this offense, again, with the Drew Petzing offense, better offensive line. You can copy these picks and tail my picks, or you can do your own lineups. But again, use that code HMA and play $5, get $50 instantly in your lineups.
I love that Haas's comment from Dan, because to me it kind of emphasizes everything that he's been talking about in terms of competition, and we're really going to go hard in training camp, so you better be ready. No free jobs this season. That's kind of the mindset that he's coming into training camp with, and he's already had it in OTAs and minicamp. And so to hear that, I was just like, he's sending a message to all these dudes, whether you're a draft pick that probably doesn't deserve a roster spot, but you've been getting one in the past because we got to protect our investment, or you're a high draft pick, or a young guy that we've given jobs to just out of necessity, like Mahogany and Terrion. We brought in guys to push you, and your job is not secure. And if you think it is, buddy, good luck. You'll find out in about 6 weeks here. So I love that. Find out. Yeah, for real. I love that from Dan, man. I really did. And I think for a player like Terrion, some players are pushed in different ways, and they are I guess they are motivated in different ways. And for a guy like TA, you go back to his Alabama days, he was benched. He was benched by Nick Saban. And I think Eli Ricks, won a job over him, or, maybe he was benched in favor of Ricks at some point while he was at Bama. And he had to go win the job back and fight and scratch and claw for everything he got. And to his credit, he did it, and he turned himself back into a first-round pick. And, when he first got to the Lions, out of necessity, they had to put him out there as a rookie. They had to put him out there as a sophomore. And he was never really challenged in a meaningful way. He just had that job kind of to start, really. And so that's not the case this year. And I think that can really maybe create this opportunity for him to rise to the occasion if he puts all the offseason headlines and everything else behind him, the injuries behind him, because he is a talented player. But, some guys just need to be pushed in different ways. And, I think the Lions might have been loving on their guys a little too much. And now it's time to push them into the deep end and be like, all right, man, sink or swim. It's time. We're going to put all this competition around you. We'll see if you can rise to the occasion. When we see those guys out there for walkthroughs, which Terrion has been participating in when he's been on the field, they split them up in the 2 fields. I know Dan said not to read too much into it, but I always call it the varsity field and the JV field. So in the varsity field, you got the starting offense and starting defense. And on the JV field, you have a lot of the reserves and young guys and UDFAs trying to work their way up the ladder. And Terrion has been on that JV field for, all of OTAs and all of minicamp. And so we've seen Ennis Racestraw later in practice kind of get moved to the varsity and play it in those team drills with the starting defense. But, Terrion hasn't been a part of that because of the injury. But even the fact that he's out there and they're putting Khalil Dorsey and Rocky Scene over there with the varsity squad, they're trying to send him a message and say, look, man, we know you're not 100% right now, but your job is not secure. You got to fight and scratch and claw for it just like you were at Bama. And, I think they're hoping that gets the best out of him. But, he's got to come out and perform when he's healthy enough to be out there for those full team periods. And if he doesn't, they've got depth to replace him if they really want to. They really like Rocky Scene. They've got Ennis working into that first team defense on occasion, and he's healthy now. So it's now's the time, man, to prove that you're the player that we thought you could be. And if you're not, then we'll just move on. Again, we're not letting anyone hold us hostage right now. And I think that's the perfect message for this group and some of these guys and where they're at in their careers.
And Colton, to Terrion's credit, I thought he had a pretty refreshing and thoughtful perspective on it. He said, if you don't have coaches who are going to go out there trying to find guys to replace you or to push you, it's not going to get the best out of you. So I think that message has been sent, and I think for Terrion, it's been received.
Absolutely. I agree.
I think you guys bringing this up just